Okay. Professor Marc Landy, who teaches political science at Boston College, thank you so much for joining us. What we're here to talk about is a possible, or is it even possible, third term for President Trump, which he has floated in recent media interviews. So I think the obvious question is, has that ever been done, and is it even possible?
Well, well, of course, remember the amendment is pretty recent. It only happened in the late 1940s. So Franklin Delano Roosevelt, so there was no limit on the number of terms. But George Washington, God bless him, retired after 2 terms. Jefferson retired after 2 terms. And with those precedents, other would be some others would have loved to run again. Grant toyed with it. Uh, Others have toyed with it, but they didn't do it. The precedent had that kind of power over the American imagination that nobody tried it. And then FDR came along. He served his 2 terms. The war was impending. He made the judgment that it was more important that he be able to lead the country through this upcoming war than to abide by this powerful precedent. He ran for a 3rd term. Of course, he did a marvelous job leading the war. And then I think much more dubiously, he ran for a 4th. And in the wake of that, there was a kind of revulsion against that 4th term that I think was really called for. And a constitutional amendment was passed to limit the president to being elected more than twice.
And so, can you speak to kind of what that revulsion was and why the sentiment of the country has settled on 2 terms?
Well, because we are always a bit skeptical of executive power. There are dictators all over the world. Today, it's not just Putin and Z, Erdogan, and several others whose names I don't know. Um, and the feeling in the country, when I say the country, I mean especially the legal community, the political science community, the elected Congress, the active public, really felt that it was just too dangerous for the country. And it wasn't reassuring to see that 4th term of FDR.
And so, would I be correct in saying that if President Trump ran for a third term or attempted to, that would be the first time since that amendment was passed that this happened?
Of course, it's the first time, and the wording of the amendment is crystal clear. I just read it over again. It simply says that the president may not be elected more than 2 terms. Now, I am aware of a workaround that is being floated.
Can you talk about that?
Yes, I can, with some disdain. The workaround is that Vance would run for president and Trump would run for vice president. Then, assuming Vance got elected, Vance would resign. Because the amendment doesn't narrowly say that the president can't serve 3 terms. It says he can't be elected more than twice.
And so
Now,
that obviously seems like a far-fetched future.
that's the word I would choose. Christina, you chose exactly the right word. It's far fetched because, language is never crystal clear. As I say, I wish the amendment said a president may not serve 3 terms. It says he can't be elected. So then the question is, how do we probe the meaning? Because the Supreme Court faces this all the time. Language is never crystal clear. You have to probe the meaning. And so you go back, you look at the record of the congressional debate about this amendment. You go back and you can even look at the debates in the states about what it meant. And I defy you to find any serious indication that the that the intent was other than to limit the president to 2 terms. And that's what the court will do. And the court will, it would be a constitutional crisis about this.
A constitutional crisis in which we would rely on the Supreme Court to basically settle the debate.
Yes, I do rely on the Supreme Court. I know that's a bit controversial, but the Supreme Court, you read their the opinions, and they're not the most important ones, except for the Trump versus U.S., were not on partisan grounds.
Mhm.
Roberts and Barrett have shown great willingness to pay attention to the Constitution. I even suspect that the other court, in this case, the more conservative members would also. I think you'd get a unanimous decision.
So I want to ask you now, and I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball a little bit. Uh, President Trump certainly has achieved some firsts, right? He is the first convicted felon to be president of the United States. And there's certain limitations that have not held him back. So do you believe that he really will attempt this? And when he says he's not joking, he's truly not joking?
There's a journalist named Selena Vito not Vito, anyway, a very good journalist came up with the following way of thinking about Trump. Take what he says seriously, but not literally. He is not going to run for a third term. He's in his own mind sort of playful, and he wants to scare people into thinking he might. First of all, I think if they played this game, the Vance-Trump ticket would lose. But I think that it would be enjoined. I think it would be kept off the ballots. It would be a circus. But A, I think he would lose, and B, I don't actually. He's going to be in his mid-80s. I just don't believe he would have the gall to do it.
So then what is your final takeaway for our viewers who see the headlines that he wants to run for a third term?
My essential take is that Trump wakes up every morning and says, "How can I screw with the minds of the media?" That's something that he enjoys to an almost obsessive extent. And here we are talking, we talk about Trump, and that's my serious. He plays the media. He has fun. He scares people.
Right. So perhaps he is creating these headlines, and here we are talking about them.
Yeah, look, he's in the headlines. What's better?
Right.
That man, he abides by that adage that says there's no such thing as bad press.
Okay. Professor Landy, that's all we have to talk about. So thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Christina.
Okay. Have a good
Bye-bye.
one. Bye now.